started. And open this, close this, open this, and let me check if everything is working fine on my stream too.
Live online.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3. Perfect. Okay. I will sit into my original position here. And let me know, ladies and gentlemen, if we can start. If the audience sound quality is good enough. If there is no lag on my stream, please, ladies and gentlemen who are watching the stream, let us know. Old Manson, thank you for the follow, by the way.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, it's you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's Tom's like trying to check just to make sure it's working or seeing when we're live.
Yeah. So by the way, usually I use, if there are more than one person on my dev live show, I always use the actual name title or the title of the game. If it's only one person, I always use the IRL name of the person. So that's my like core attitude to my show. So that's why.
Yeah, that's fine.
The idea behind it is like, I feel like in bigger teams, like team of 10 or 20, it's always like the game represents the team more than the team represents the game more, if that makes sense, right? Because sometimes it can happen that people can leave the team, right? Or they get fired from the team, so that's why. But yeah, that was the idea behind this ideology or thought, or I don't know what I use.
No, that is true. There are definitely people who like kind of come and go during the process. I mean, for us, obviously, most of it was just us two. So
yeah, it's easier. It's like under 10 person.
Yeah, but we did have, because we had a publisher for this one. There certainly were people from the publisher side who, like, they were there when the project started, but then weren't there by the time the project finished, and
new people coming in.
Yeah, new people coming in, and that definitely, that kind of changes things and changes a little bit of some of the vibes and stuff of how things progress.
True. Ideas sometimes can divide if people cannot see the middle ground with each other, I suppose, right?
I think it's more just like phases, because it was less hands-on for the publisher with development, but just more, I think we have different periods of association with different people in the team.
Yeah, it's just the personalities, I think, as well. Like, so where one person would leave and then there'd be kind of, essentially their replacement, it's not the same person. So the way that the information and like the personality and how you interact with them, all of that stuff just kind of changes. And
I think that's true anywhere, though.
Yeah, that's true of any job with any person.
True, not just video game development. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So yeah, there were some aspects that changed from like that side while we were working on it. But I think because the publisher was kind of hands off with the actual development of the game, that didn't make it like difficult for us in like that way. Like it wasn't like we had a whole like different sort of team member person like come on, and that was just happening regularly and we had to keep catching them up to speed. So,
I would say that's one of the main things I'm grateful for with our relationship with Aquapower on the publishing side, is that they let us make the game we wanted to make, and there wasn't sort of any interference.
It's rare, I guess, nowadays, especially, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, I did a little bit of work for a slightly bigger company that had about 60 people before.
I see.
And they, there was one particular project I was on that actually changed publisher multiple times while I was there. And in that instance, publishers were much more hands-on. They were like partially doing like some of the art direction and kind of describing what they wanted changed and things. And then, for our experience with Sorry We're Closed, like there wasn't really any. There was a lot of like faith in what we wanted to do and what we were trying to do. And I think there would be like sometimes where we might say something and we were feeling a little not confident, and they'd like try and boost our confidence a bit and say, no, try and discover what, and keep the differences that make this game different from others.
I see.
But there was never really an instance of, oh, I don't like this design, change it, or can you
or
make this
being asked
character
to have
look like
things
another
taken out,
character?
nothing like that.
Yeah.
So,
That's rare. That's rare, and I respect that people can like push others towards their success, right? So and their dreams to make it happen.
Yeah, that's something that I definitely like feel that's like an Akapar's like strong point, or at least, you know, in our experience, they they kind of kept their faith in the project, and yeah, just sort of supported that. And I there have been instances where I've talked to other friends who've like worked on smaller teams like ours and had publishers, and you know that wasn't really the case, or you know everything was an uphill battle. And yeah, it's yeah, there's a lot of scary stories out there.
True, it's true. Yeah. But people maintain, and if they have the vision and the the hearts to make it through, they will, right? So because at the end of the day, it's our passion for people, right, to make their
Yeah.
dreams come true, even if it's like game development, even if it's like composing a musical track. Yeah, every
Yeah.
form of art, I believe, like has that
Yeah,
drive
and
through if we are enough passionate about it, right? So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that it definitely really felt like it was it was what we were doing was definitely like a project of love, I think.
What did I describe it? Like you take part of the soul, and that that's no
write it
longer with
down.
you, but that time and energy and anguish at some points is then in, the thing that's being created.
Yeah.
True,
Yeah,
true.
no, it was certainly a passion of like project, and a project of passion and love, because I think what also ended up happening with like Sorry We're Close to specifically is like when we started it, it wasn't like we intended it to be a very small, like, and at the very start we thought we'd make like a game that was maybe about an hour to 2 hours long, and 2 hours was like kind of stretching it for us at the time. And
Because we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, Christine's worked in the studio before doing like 2D concept art, but
that was
we don't
kind of
have a
it.
background in game development or any training
I
in
see, I
that. So
see,
we
I
were
see.
kind of finding our feet with this project, learning as we went along. So we thought, we'll make a tiny game and see what happens. And then, I don't know, we were lucky to get interest in it and the chance to develop it into a kind of full release.
Yeah. But then even with that, it was like when we started the project, I think we got very enthusiastic and like put loads of extra ideas into it. So it
See.
kind of, you know, scope creep's a real thing, right? Everybody talks about it. And that is kind of what happened to Sorry We're Closed. Like the initial idea was, you know, 4 small levels, 2 enemy types per level, and that was kind of it.
There weren't any bosses or anything
Yeah.
originally. The play features, I guess, were similar. Like we had the fixed cameras in the first person view,
I see, I
and
see, I see.
the kind of puzzle and dialogue elements
Yeah.
were there since the start.
Yeah, just where we started fitting more things together, like, or started planning out, okay, how does this game actually play out? Like, you know, with the full ideas that we had. I guess the way to, oh, also, have we kind of like I just wanted to check. Have we like started the
Yeah, we
didn't
did,
do
we did.
anything.
Yeah, we did, we
Yeah,
did.
I was like, we just started talking.
No, I haven't made my
Um,
intro, but if you want, I can.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
do your
yeah.
intro,
Yeah.
do your intro. I just started like
No, it's okay, it's okay, it's
babbling.
totally fine. It's totally fine. I love that you guys love speaking. I love that attitude. Thank you for that. So yeah, by the way, welcome everyone in the very new episode of my Dev Live show. Today I'm joined with Alamode Games, and I would like to say that I'm very thankful and really honored that you joined us for today's episode. Like I'm always saying, let's start with a little bit of introduction first.
Mhm. So yeah, I'm CB, or C Bedford, and I, for this project in particular, did like a lot of the narrative design and like the 3D models, the art, the animations. So a lot of the visual stuff, the UI, all of that stuff, was kind of my responsibility.
I see.
And
I'm Tom. I did, if Christine did everything you can see, I did everything that you can't see. So the programming and assembling all of these components
I see.
into a game in the game engine. And then together we worked on like the game design and the level design. occasionally there will be some Tom dialogue in the game, but
Yeah.
most of that got replaced over time. Or
Well,
written by a writer, not by me. Yep. So
well, yeah.
improved.
But yeah, I think yeah, so it's really difficult when it's like, such a small team. It's very hard to say like everyone's individual responsibility, because obviously there'd be some instances where either of us would have like an idea for something
True,
and
true, true.
it would
Like
get
you're
put in.
changing hats, what you do at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's us. That's what we do. Sorry We're Closed was our first like, commercial title. We did a couple of game jams like in between some of the production, but like yeah, this is our first title, and it's been like a journey. It's been fun. It's been tough, and yeah, hopefully we can kind of share some of our experiences and maybe some of the wisdom we gained along the way today.
Thank you for that. By the way, we can go back to that topic that we discussed before the intro if you want. I'm open to that.
Yeah, sure. What were we talking about?
We were talking
were
about the
talking.
publisher relationship and also how.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so yeah, basically, yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, it was basically that like, Akapar definitely gave us like the freedom to, sort of express what we wanted in the story.
I see.
And I think there's also a worry too when making like a commercial product if something's too niche. And Sorry We're Closed is definitely like a niche title, like with all the themes that are within it, the visual style, the gameplay style. Um, and yeah, just someone like letting a game like that have a chance and wanting to sort of invest in its future. It feels really nice. It feels great.
True, very true. And like I said, it's rare, especially nowadays, that publishers believe in the developers, right? So
Yeah, I mean, our experience is like kind of limited as a team as Alamode. I've had some of that experience that I had when I was working with the slightly larger company, but even then, with the larger company, I wouldn't be the one talking to them. It's like, everything gets put through like filters and filters and filters of
see.
like, the chain of command. Sometimes there'd be written documents, and
Because like you got quite big directional changes
yeah,
come through.
yeah, yeah.
Just as on, and not for this project, for the previous
Yeah,
project.
for the previous from my previous experience with the previous company. And to my surprise, sometimes the request would be very direct and be like, "Oh, well, this character you're creating here looks kind of like this character from another game. How about we just make them look
I
like
see.
this character?" Yeah, which is really discouraging, I think, for, if you're on a team trying to do your own ideas,
True,
especially if you're like on the creative side of it. So yeah, being able to have kind of the I do what I want, and me being the only artist, it
True.
was like, okay, whatever design I wanted was what would get passed through onto the game itself, and definitely very liberating. And I think in some ways it would add some stresses but also sort of alleviate some stresses at the same time. Like, you want it to be really good,
I
but
think so. You
also
didn't get that whiplash of, as a team, we think we've made a good design, then okay, there's a voice coming down, or we think we can make more money if we change it, and then
yeah.
the team
True,
gets more and more
true.
dejected the more and more you're pushed away from the vision.
True.
Yeah.
And
And
that wouldn't make
I was
sense, right? To change something. Sorry for interrupting you. That wouldn't make sense in order to like gain more money or more sold copies just to change something, right? If you have a strict vision with the story and the gameplay itself. I think.
Yeah, and I think what ended up happening as well, with some of that whiplash too, is like I said before, there was multiple different publishers throughout the project, and they all had their own vision.
I see.
So it wasn't just whiplash from us making something as a team and then it coming from a publisher. It was like, there was just multiple instances of the entire vision changing. So
So I guess, yeah, we had the consistency with Sorry We're Closed, with just working with Akapara throughout the process.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't
and
say there was any interference from them. So that was, well, it's my first experience of working with a publisher, so I don't have a lot to compare it to, but yeah, we were very happy with that side of the process.
I see.
yeah, and yeah, and again, just trying to for something again so niche, like just trying to find a way to help people understand what it is, because there's so many different parts of it as well that I think I don't know if I want to use the word clash, but there's definitely a bit of juxtaposition of like the third person camera, but the first person shooting. It's a survival horror, but it's got lots of like dialogue and character interaction. It's, survival horror is usually meant to be very super scary, but we've kind of got like a Scooby-Doo vibe going on a little bit with our game. There's a lot of goofiness involved and a lot of, it being very video gamey rather
True,
than,
true, true, true.
strictly like a scary cinematics
True.
experience that you'd normally get. So yeah, that was tricky, I think, trying to get across the vibe, generally what it is. But a lot of people seem happy with it and enjoying it, and kind of
Yeah,
it's
because it's a
clicking.
unique combination of everything, like you said, and it has also very unique and very appealing story to people, in my opinion, because it's about love, right? So it matters
Yeah,
at the end of the day, even if
yeah,
sometimes we do not talk about it because it's a taboo topic nowadays, I believe so, for a lot of people. But it's important. It's important, and I think in deep end of everyone's heart and mind, that's why people can resonate this with this topic at the end of the day.
yeah. Thank you. I think, yeah, with the sort of topic of love and um, the kind of theme of the game came later after our initial thoughts of what game we wanted to make
I see.
play-wise. So we decided on, a lot of the aspects of it being like fixed camera of, versus the first person shooting from the start. We had this idea that it was going to be survival horror style gameplay. And it wasn't until a little bit while we're sort of starting to design the visual aspect of it that, I was like, okay, how about we go with this theme and sort of run with it. Um, and
It's
then
like kind of the first 6 months. So we were mechanics first, like a couple of months, then I guess where are we going with the story? What will the
Oh,
story
okay.
be?
So
Who
the
is the
story
main
were
character?
second. Oh, okay.
Um,
yeah, oh sorry, you go ahead, Tom. Were you gonna say something?
um, I guess development wasn't really how maybe people would normally go about it, because it started with, well, can I make a character walk around in Unity? Can I
I
make
see. I
fixed
see.
cameras work? So I was starting with like a model I had made in Blender that looked
I,
hideous.
I see.
And and then Christine's like, oh, maybe I should make a model. Their first 3D model ended up being our main character, Michelle. So
Nice.
it was very accidental start. And then we're like, okay, well, we can walk around. Christine can make 3D models. What do we do with this?
Yeah, where do we
And
want to kind of take it?
I see.
And then with the story kind of coming later, even that, it had quite a few like evolutions all throughout development. Because we hadn't really made a story for a project of this size before, and there's the extra layer of interactivity, like, the player gets to choose. We wanted to kind of give some sort of agency. We wanted there to be, some consequences for what the player chose. And
but while trying to make it feel like it isn't good and bad choices, it's just different choices,
I
we
see.
hope,
I see. I see. I
for
see.
people. Yeah.
yeah, and I, it's that's a lot of requirements, I guess, for like a writing project, and not really having to start with the tools on how to execute that. So there were things that we had to change along the way to be able to supplement like all of those different things that we felt were important for like an engaging and kind of something that lends to the rest of the game so that it's
I see.
just fun to play rather than okay, let me do my chores real quick.
That's kind of just moving around like the plot, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah,
where are we going on this journey to explore these ideas of love? But I think for you, the idea of that, what you wanted to tell, was established fairly early
yeah,
on.
there's like a very core part of the story that I did establish very on, which
I
was
see.
okay, if it's with the theme of love, I wanted it to, yeah, the thing of it not feeling like there was a right or wrong way, because there's very like, how do I say it? There's very kind of extreme actions happening inside the game. And I didn't want people to feel like, oh, if you choose this one, that's correct, or if you choose this one, that's wrong. Or if you feel this way about it, your feelings are
True.
wrong.
True. True. Like you
And the other
weren't
thing
trying
that,
to preach, right? It's just choices that we make in real life too, right? We cannot consider if it's good or bad because it's about us making something in order to be loved or love someone, right? So
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, with it being a video game, we took lots of liberties of making some of the story very extreme and, allowing like to suspend the disbelief that, characters could be forgiving of such extreme actions or kind of put it to the back of their mind. Because at the end of the day, it's a video game. And, we weren't trying to create like a life simulation or
True, true,
dating
true, true,
simulation
true, 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 true,
specifically.
true.
And then the other thing that I felt was kind of established and what I wanted to achieve early on was I wanted it to be that the experience was very open and kind of relatable to
I
as many
see.
people as
I
possible.
see.
And I I felt that, there's a lot of queer characters in the game, and I don't feel that stories that have queer characters and queer relationships are specifically for a queer audience. I think that's a silly idea.
True.
Um, and I didn't want to focus on the themes are thoroughly, through the experience of like, being a queer person, but at the same time, I wanted the overall themes of love to just be sort of resonate with people generally. Like, yes, the difficulty of love, the difficulty of acceptance is it can ring true for many, many people in different situations, and kind of the difficulty of getting over yourself a little bit as
True,
well.
true, true.
So
And I think
yeah, I
it's
would say
true
that.
for everyone in real life
Yeah.
too. Like we all want love in some way, right? So it's not just that some people from society wants to be loved or to love someone, but every one of us deeply, even if we are trying to avoid it, right? But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we will
Yeah.
land to the point of our life when we would like to get loved or to love someone or to have
Yeah.
someone around us. So
And I think as well as that, I tried to also write in a way that there didn't necessarily need to be like a romantic love
I
resolution
see,
for
I
the end
see,
of
I
the
see,
game
I
as
see.
well. Because there was at some points me thinking too about there's some discussion around like, aromantic people and asexual people and this thing and of love doesn't have to be completely and only a romantic type
True,
of or
true,
sexual
true,
type of love.
true.
And I also do feel that you can learn lessons about love or how you the type of person you want to be in the world and the type of people you want in your life without it having to have a romantic
True.
resolution.
I believe so, yeah.
So that was another thing that came up during the writing of the game of like, how do I how do like what is the pathway for that to allow the character Michelle to come to revelations without having to fall in love with someone by the end of it.
I see.
I think that was a struggle. Like, how do we have hopefully satisfying endings to these different stories without people feeling cheated because there isn't like a dating sim payoff at the end? It's not, you can't
I see.
tick all the boxes and have an explicit scene in
I
any
see.
of the endings.
Hmm. Yeah, so yeah, and actually I think in the end, I'm kind of happy that we decided to, rather than it being Michelle pursuing various different romantic avenues, I tried to put some of I put a lot of the story into the side characters, so that they could have their own individual problems without Michelle having to be completely malleable to any particular type of personality that she could potentially fall in love with. It was, here are different examples of love and different struggles. Um, how would Michelle react to those without being personally involved?
I see.
Um, so yeah, that was another interesting thing to try and explore and discover. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of how the writing evolved over time, and it I think I would say that there were some aspects of the other game and the gameplay that ended up being a little bit sacrificed because we had this like large task of having all of these different options, which there's a part of me that regrets that. I kind of wish that I was able to sort of more quickly come to the results we ended up with in the end, so that we could have spent more time focusing on those gameplay aspects. But at the same time, we thought with the style of the game and the kind of audience we were capturing, that would probably be one of the focus, like if not the main focus point. Yeah. So we relied a lot on that. So that's kind of how it turned out the way that it did.
Thank you for this story. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to, by the way, a bit of into your past, both of your past. What was the very first contact? I was wondering with video games, if you remember those times of your past.
Oh,
so
gosh,
how it all started for you as playing video games?
I remember specifically.
Yeah, I'll let you go first because I've
Okay.
been talking a lot.
My aunt had a Game Boy, so there was young Tom there, and then there's suddenly this device with Tetris and like
Nice.
Super Mario Bros. Or no, Super Mario Land. Yeah. And being enamored with that on that one afternoon and then begging for one for ages. And then yeah, it was sort of that, and then my friend had like a Game Boy again and an N64, and I think I got things quite late, like I was maybe 11 or something, 10 or 11 when we got a console. And yeah, it was all about Zelda at the beginning, Link's Awakening and Ocarina of Time.
Nice.
And we got a used copy, and there was one quite near the end of the game, and I knew that the swords had different powers. Like there's the Master Sword, but then this person had the Bigorn Sword, and I was like, that's more powerful. So I would keep trying to fight the final boss because they take away your Master Sword and then give it back to you. And I'm like, I don't want this. I want the powerful sword, but you can't kill it with that. So there's me as a kid, just like fighting Ganon for hours, well, probably not hours, until I died, which probably wasn't very long, but with this weapon that would never be able to kill him.
I think that's just how games were back then, though. There was a lot of things that might have seemed intuitive when they were designing it, but from a child's perspective, you just think, yes, more powerful means it is the ultimate weapon, right?
Yeah,
true.
I don't know if it's being a child or there being less stuff online then, but there would be rumors and things like my friend said, oh, you can't hit the sword against the wall too many times or it will break.
You had to call your friends in order to gain some information about games. There were no internet, right? And no YouTube tutorials. Yeah.
And that was true for one of the swords, but not all the other ones. So I was being really careful with all of the equipment. So I didn't break it in the game, but that most of them would have been fine.
There's always like a kid who's like, oh, I have an uncle that works at Nintendo, isn't there? There's always an uncle at Nintendo.
Very true.
Yeah. And like also the stories of like, oh yeah, and they're gonna make this cool game that has these characters in it from all of these different titles. And then Batman's gonna be in it too.
True. That's multiverses, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
True, very true. Yeah.
So yeah.
What about you?
It's harder for me to pinpoint because my mom was into gaming before I was born.
I see.
So she would be playing like the Atari and stuff.
Nice. So it stayed in the family then.
Yeah. So, and I would probably say, so, my earliest memories would be, okay, we had the Nintendo, we would be playing Mario. She was obsessed with Tetris and Pac-Man. Those were her two things. So I'd play that a lot. And gosh, would this have been Nintendo or Super Nintendo? There was one she used to play a lot called Pipe Dreams. And I used to be really scared of that game just because of like the colors. The colors on it were quite ominous. And it's like you have to quickly build this pipe before like this goop comes out of it, it's like a puzzle thing. And I think in my mind as a child, I just decided it must be corrosive acid, and if you don't fix the pipe, everyone dies. But yeah, those would probably be my earliest memories playing them as a family as well. So it wasn't video games it's really hard to explain it. We weren't necessarily obsessive. I mean, me and my brothers would have been, but it was certainly like a thing in the family. It wasn't like just me who was into it.
I see.
Because I can also remember my mom still had her Atari cartridges that she kept in like, what are they called? Where they have like the display cabinets for the fine china. She had Atari like things in there, and I would look at them and be like, "What is on this thing? I can't play it." And for my mom, it made financial sense to buy consoles for us as kids because it meant it was like one gift that could be shared between,
True.
the three of
The whole
us.
family, yeah.
Yeah. So, when the consoles came out, she was quite happy to buy them. So we had the Nintendo, we had the Super Nintendo, we had, Mega Drive, which was called, what, Genesis? Was it Genesis?
Genesis. Yeah.
Genesis. We had Sega Saturn. We had, the PlayStation when it came out. We had the N64. We had the PlayStation 2. We had
You
Xbox.
had everything.
We did everything. Dreamcast, which
Nice,
was
nice.
that was the one that was in my room. So the Dreamcast is like, my special heart, like my little heart console, right?
Oh, that almost leads nicely onto
Oh, and how we
Phantasy
met.
Star Online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I played Phantasy Star Online so much.
I see.
It came out to like the year 2000, right? It's the year 2000, and the Dreamcast exists. Everything is fine. Global warming's not quite an issue. It is, but in my like 11 or 10-year-old mind, it wasn't like a big deal yet, right? And I'm in my bedroom and I am playing a game called Phantasy Star Online, which is like my first like online
I
RPG.
see, I see, I see.
And it just felt amazing. Like it blew my mind. I could make a character of any shape and size.
True.
I could make them any skin color. And I could play with people across the world. And I remember having a friend who was from England, and we both typed out at the same time, like, isn't this amazing that we're both here at the same time? And I was ready for the future then. Not the future we have now. The future we have now is very different from what I imagined as a 10-year-old, you know. um,
So that friend from England was not me at the time.
no.
And my experience of Phantasy Star Online was my friend saying I should get it for GameCube because it was ported to it. So I get it, and I just play the offline version. I'm like, okay, the characters look cool. I like the style of it, but this is really boring. I'm just doing the same level over and over again, trying to grind to get enough,
Yeah.
equipment and power to beat the levels. And a few years later, there was a PC port, Blue Burst,
I see.
and I play that. It's online. It's really cool then because it's like MSN Messenger but 3D. You can chat to the people and you
True,
can play
true,
the
Play
true.
game.
game, yeah. And
And
I found out about it as well after not playing it since Dreamcast days. My brother was like, there's a version for PC, and I was immediately hooked and obsessed and playing it like every waking hour. And that's where we met when I was like
yeah,
16 and you were 17.
Nice,
yeah,
nice, nice,
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
nice.
So that's how we met. And yeah, we just stayed in touch ever since, and then got married, and yeah, I've been together for
Love that
whatever.
story.
maybe.
I love these stories about video games can really like make relationships and friendships and everything happen. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And then we made a game about love.
True,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
true,
So it
true.
worked out. I think
It's like a respect for that reason, right? Your past that it really could happen because of video games, right? We could say so.
yeah. I think the thing about video games for me, like especially growing up, it definitely made me feel like, a better world is
True,
possible.
true, true, true. I can
Playing.
relate to that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you're playing like these sort of heroic characters who like, they're making tough decisions, but you're seeing the growth of the people over
True,
time and
true, 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 true,
understanding
true, true.
why people do the things that they do.
It's like a
And
mirror reflection as well, right? So a real world that we understand ourselves and other people around us better, right? Because of video games, I believe so.
yeah, exactly. And there was definitely like a sense of like wonder that you get as a kid. And I think, it helped having these sort of I guess now rudimentary graphics, then amazing graphics, because even though the graphics seemed amazing at the time, you still really had to use a lot of your own imagination
True,
to
true,
fill in the gaps of visual information or
true.
the abstract nature of, for example, a time-based battle. You had to kind of reimagine it in your mind and that suspension of disbelief to really get the feeling and the emotion that it was trying to convey while enjoying the mechanics of the game. And yeah, so I think it definitely, I don't know, there was just something magical about them. And while we were making Sorry We're Closed, one thing I kept trying to like say to myself while working on anything, I kind of did this thing where I was like, what would 10-year-old me want in this game? And I kind of went with that. Like, what would 10-year-old me want in the game? What would 14-year-old me want out of a game?
True.
And between those two things, yeah, I was just like, actually,
That's the kid in
10-year-old
us
me.
in our adult form, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And kind of shedding this thing of like,
True.
oh, it needs to be of a certain standard of how I am now in my 30s. It was,
True.
I think I just went right back to how I felt about things when I was young.
Well, with the two of us, we had to try and use that suspension of disbelief because we don't have the the ability to create something that does have, very careful animations for every interaction in the game. I don't think it's possible with a tiny team unless we spent 10 years making it or something. So we have to go in and use the game elements. Things, a door can snap open in one frame with a silly sound effect. And that, trying not to worry about does that lessen the impact of the story we're trying to tell, and just be happy that it is a game and we can use the non-realistic visual style to get away with things that
Oh yeah,
maybe a
definitely.
AAA game can't get away with because they have that such attention to detail, all those experts making all of those interactions very carefully.
Though I would say one thing I do notice now, like while playing games, so I've been playing Metaphor because, I've got time finally, and I wanted something, I've been itching for like a fantasy RPG for a long time. So I started playing it, and one thing I'm examining things a lot more, right? Now that I've do like kind of the design aspects of it. And I'm sort of realizing, like looking at things, and I'm like, oh wow, so when you're there's a thing called like a gauntlet runner. It's like a vehicle and it's got legs. And while the legs are running, I realized on one side the animation is fine. It bends and it's perfect. And, on the other side, one of the joints clips through itself. And I had that feeling of vindication of like, okay, even the big teams make these little mistakes and they have to just write them off because they're more important things to do.
True.
And also sometimes while they're doing their idle animations, if you press the next button and they go to do another one, they have like a little blip where they sort of snap to the next animation, which I don't think I would have ever noticed before if I was just like playing normally. And it's not a bad thing, but it's just nice to kind of see, I guess, that they're at the end of the day, they're trying to make a game that people enjoy, and sometimes there's just certain small, tiny details that even a large team are just going to have to let go because it's not worth the hassle. People
Very
would rather
true.
have a completed game.
Very true. Yeah, and I feel like as for the AAA aspect of the industry, people have had, or at least nowadays have way higher expectations that developers in the AAA scene can meet. I always say this, that the real problem nowadays is that the games are not bad, like people call them very bad and shit games. It's not about that. It's just people have too high expectations that developers sometimes in the AAA scene cannot meet. Because I always joke about this, but it's also a true thing that a lot of people cannot describe what is a good game for them. They have this like unlimited expectations of a good game, but at the end of the day, if you would be to sit down with them and ask what a good game is for them, they won't be able to answer it because it's like they don't know what a good game is for them anymore.
And I think one thing that kind of sorry, you were gonna say
no,
something?
it's no, it's just
I guess one other thing that I feel sometimes too is it's very easy to like see something and feel like something's kind of missing from it. But also it's this thing of, I think, as we kind of get like technological advancements and more space and more power and higher fidelity, um I think sometimes there's like the plot of a not a plot the point of a game is like there's established rules and you play within the confines of the rules to win. And that goes back, playing tag, playing football, playing any kind of game.
the most simple games.
And yeah, and I think when it comes to video games, and especially now, there's so many different possibilities that the confines of what those rules are begin to expand, and I guess it becomes a little less gamified. It becomes more
True.
task
True,
orientated
true,
because
true,
it's
true,
not
true.
like the limitations and the skill that you have to build up in order to move forward. It's more that
True.
here are the different things you could potentially do.
So it's like ways to spend your time in the world, do you mean?
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
checklist for the grocery store at the end of the day in IRL, right?
Yeah,
yeah. And
that I
sorry, go ahead.
uh what's in my mind is like, well, I already have a job, so why do I want the game to be a job afterwards? But then I'm also thinking of myself spending, dozens and dozens of hours in Fallout enjoying collecting the things and
True, true. I can
selling
relate to that.
them.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It's like grinding the battle passes in the games, right? It
Yeah,
gets boring over time.
and
I've never really got into those ones, but yeah, I understand what you mean. It's like there are these list of things, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
then there's a new one and it repeats.
and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's the case too. It's like at first it's very novel. So it feels like like you're kind of seeing a new world, but then the task itself and the repetition and the iterations, I think the actual thing you're doing probably isn't as fun as the world you're exploring.
True, true,
So
true,
once you
true.
kind of finished exploring the world, you're kind of, or at least that's my experience,
True.
especially with like kind of more open world games. And I guess to bring it back to Sorry We're Closed, that was something we were a little bit worried about. Like we wanted to make it so like very condensed, very compact. Try to feel like you're doing something different with the different levels, and just try not to overstay its welcome. And that's going to be a different experience for everyone. So we couldn't, it's impossible to make a perfect game, but yeah.
It was more trying to find other ways we can iterate on the mechanics of different puzzles and things, or a different vibe, like who is going with you in the level or how the
Mhm,
boss works for it.
mhm,
But talking about repetition, there are things I like about repetition, like killing the bugs on each level.
mhm,
I think that brings it like, oh, I know what to do with this. I've seen this in the other level, and I'm going to deviate exactly from what I'm doing because I've seen the bug and I want to crush it. You get the little sound,
mhm.
you get your little tally of them at the end.
Yeah.
Or even like the shop, going through the level and you get to go to the shop and you see Tad, and even though he's saying most of the same things each time, I like that kind of, oh, I've had my start and now it's the end of this day. And
Like a conclusion.
it's a little bit of familiarity around
True,
the other
true.
different events that are happening.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So it was kind of for us, especially with how I guess maybe awkward our gameplay is with this camera, first person
It's
camera, and
not,
then
in
we
my
felt like,
opinion, like it's nostalgic, right? So
yeah,
for me, at least,
and
when I played it, it was like very nostalgic, brought me back to my childhood. So
well, that's good because I mean that was with we always describe it as nostalgic,
it's
rather
like
than like PS1 because it's not a direct PS1 remake. Like it's not got.
Yeah, there are some people who do that very authentically with like the shimmering textures and um, using like poly counts for models that would be authentic to the time.
Mm,
The style is more a product of what can we make look visually interesting with the team of two. But the feeling of the fixed camera angles and walking around in those environments is definitely something we wanted to capture. And the first person came from, well, these are being rendered in real time. It's not like 2D images that make up the room like in the old Resident Evils. It's we have real 3D geometry
I see.
and we can let people examine it as the effort's gone into making it.
mhm.
Um,
And
and
also, I was hoping that like the enemies would feel a little bit scarier coming at you in first person, rather than them just kind of being a distance away. And I think the other thing too with it, like we were trying to go for how we remember these old games looking and kind of feeling rather
I
than
see.
how they actually looked and how they actually played. Because there's always this thing too, like I remember they had Knights, which was like on the Sega Saturn, and playing it, and you know, to my child mind, it was this I was obsessed, and it was like this incredible world with all of this incredible detail. And I was like, you know, praying that I would visit the knight's world one day as like, you know, sort of 6-year-old. I'd wake up and be there. And then like Tom was like, oh, you know, this is me as an adult. He's like, oh, they re-released it on the thing. Like they've got like a
There was like a Wii
remaster or
remake,
something.
wasn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, that would be incredible. And I go to play it, and it is like so awkward. And you know, it's a pretty game, but also it's like really like kind of garish and a little bit hard to understand sometimes. And but in and I understand also, you know, there's the argument of, oh, it would have looked different on a cathode ray, but I think that would have only done so much, you know, for it. And yeah, I think there was like definitely that realization for me that, okay, as good as a visual memory I feel that I can have, the entire feeling that I used to get for things in my past as a child was you know, because of my inexperience, my
True.
naivety, and you know, revisiting that as an adult, it's not what I thought it was as a kid. Like there are differences there. So I think aiming for a nostalgic feeling felt more appropriate for us and what we wanted to achieve with the
I see.
feelings that people got, rather than, you know, just having the hard limitations and working with that instead.
I see.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't know how people were going to react, but I think we felt that, okay, these games are very revered in people's minds for a reason. There were, you know, much bigger teams, not bigger than today's teams, but it would have been like 10, maybe 20 people making these games, and there were just two of us. And I think we felt we had to go with what we wanted to put in the game, not be afraid that these old games didn't have that or that we were straying from it. Because they exist, people can go and enjoy the old Resident Evils or Silent Hills. And
Sorry.
I don't know, I think we tried not to be constrained, just trying to remember it's a game and we can put different things in it.
I see. By the way, a more personal question from me would be, do you believe that your family members, close friends were supportive about your decision that you made the first step in order to make your game when you started making your game together? How do you feel about it?
I think we have to be very thankful for their patience. We disappeared for large periods of the last 2 years.
I see.
I think there is some regret with that because my parents are getting older and I would have wanted to better manage my time in this process with that. So yes, they've been incredibly supportive, but I have regrets about how the time with that played out and don't want to enter an as intense a period as it has been finishing this game in the future.
Well, in my way of thinking about it too, I think with the way that some of like the production stuff turned out with Sorry We're Closed, it became very, very difficult, you know, sort of the last 6 months, and especially right up to release. There was, you know, the way that things had turned out for us and how the time just didn't work out. I feel like it was more that with our naivety, those things could have been avoided in some respect. Like I know there's always going to be problems. You know, there's a new challenge with each new game, but there's a part of me that feels like, you know, it shouldn't have taken that much like out of us for something like Sorry We're Close to be made. And, you know, it's that thing of where, okay, we've got the experience now, we've got the knowledge now, but there's some aspects of that kind of burned us pretty badly, where it's like we almost feel scared to re-enter that, you know.
I think so. I think there was a period in development where it was easy to create new things, and we made a lot of stuff for the game, but then it's polishing all of that and being able to get a good perspective on what is working and what's not working and wrap that up into a finished product.
Yeah. I think from my family side, I mean, my brothers were absolutely ecstatic. They were like, because, when we were growing up as teenagers, that was always the dream to work in the video game industry from, all of us. Um, you know, re- I have two younger siblings as well who would, who were very ecstatic about it too. And, in their minds, I was living the dream basically of what they've always wanted to do. I mean, obviously, with them all being older now, it's not like they're feeling like, oh, I wish I was doing it instead. It was just a case of like, oh, we're really happy for you. And, that's so cool. Tell us about it. And, especially my oldest brother, who he's still like kind of he does like tech work still. So I think for him it was really fascinating seeing it like kind of come about and how we were getting through the motions. Our friends were very, very supportive. They heard us talking about the game a lot and ranting and complaining. We used to have, we still do. We have a game night where, friends come over once a week. We call it game night. We stopped playing games quite a while ago. We just have dinner and we talk about
Sorry.
playing games potentially. We never get to it.
Even that, like, of course, that went away for like the last 6 months, so we've started up again now. But
Yeah,
I
I
see.
think that's about the patience and supportive nature. There
yeah.
was one part where like a couple of people from the group just came to the house and like, you have to come outside today. We're going for a walk.
Yeah, yeah,
They took us out to just walk by the river, which was a lovely afternoon. But it was, I mean, not joking, like the 3 months, 4 months before release, I left the house like 5 times. We didn't know if the car worked at the end. Like
yeah.
we hadn't driven anywhere for like over a month.
But that's passion,
We
right? So it really shows that
um
you were passionate about the project.
I
it
think
was passion, inexperience, and
I
I
think
guess being
anxiety as
afraid
well.
of the date coming up. People were
I
going to
see.
play it. We
I see.
had this limited period of time, so it's putting everything we can into it whilst also being blind at what the state of the game is.
I see.
Yeah.
Like we don't know if it is good or not anymore
I think
during that time.
as well as that too, there's like kind of an underlying fear of like, you know, you see how things on the internet can kind of have like really strong
True.
reactions.
True. True. True.
And
Sadly, I would say. Yeah.
yeah, and it's that thing of the fear of putting something out there, and would it be a complete dud? Will it be completely ignored?
True. True.
Or will it gain some sort of negative traction that could potentially further harm our like kind of mental state and things? So,
True.
and it's all unknown, you're guessing really what's going to happen because you have no idea. Will it do well? Will it do poorly? What does that mean for us in the future?
I think it was a different scale for me. Like I knew we were making a niche title, but I didn't want to disappoint the people that were supporting us
Yeah,
because
I see.
they're choosing to spend their money on our product. So I'm like, I feel I have to make it the best I can for them because they're making
Responsibility.
that
Yeah.
decision. Yeah.
yeah.
Like
See,
I knew it wouldn't be for some people and
yeah.
was I think expecting more negativity than I've seen
Yeah,
since release.
yeah.
Um,
I think, and also, speaking of like supportive friends, we did have friends who played the game, like some of our friends from game night who like kind of were play testers, and we watched them and saw them go through the motions, and that was so informative. But my close friend Aru, who was like kind of helping with a bit of the marketing and stuff as well. We were like, we need help with playtesting the game, and they've never done that before, but they did like a really phenomenal job of like going through and kind of doing a quality assurance check for us.
yeah, the last several weeks they were playing the game pretty much full time each week, so giving me lists of things like it was yeah very helpful for the release quality of the game.
And we also had our friend Tala, who you already done an interview with, working on Judero and working on Wilmot basically at the same time. And there were times where we're kind of like so frustrated and like ranting to him about like our problems, like even though he's got his own problems, and he's like kind of being patient when listening and giving a fair sort of opinion on, you know, are we having like a tunnel vision on something, or
see.
are we maybe thinking about it in a way like that's unhealthy, just due to our involvement and being stuck inside of the game. So we definitely had some friends who like really pulled together and just sort of supported us like when we were feeling down or when things were feeling particularly tough for us, and trying to make sure that we were like taking care of ourselves, because it's very, very easy, especially working from home. Like, it's so easy to just get up, not shower, and start work. And then you're working, and then you have like, you eat one meal, and then you're like, okay, I got to work again. And then you just go to bed and you do
The
the same
time
thing.
balance that you were talking about, yeah.
Yeah. So
I would say shower later in the day rather than a shower.
yeah, a shower would eventually happen when you think there's time.
Yeah, you're like, okay, one of us can get lunch together while the other one showers or something.
Yeah.
Then the other one can do the dishes while
We
the other
were
one showers.
we were like min-maxing like
Like,
tasks
I think
to
the whole last month we just ordered food. We'd get like one big meal a day and
yeah, we
like
didn't we
just
felt
eat
that
scraps from that as snacks the rest of the time,
because we didn't feel like we had time to
I
like
see.
do a food order. So we would
or
just
like go
like
and do shopping.
yeah.
Yeah, because normally like it's like that might be like a monthly thing you order a meal in, but it's like we were just like, okay,
Yeah. And I think this is like where the big scope creep thing comes in, because it's like we got to a point where we had mostly implemented these things, and taking them out would have been more work at this point
Sure.
than just finishing them. But finishing them was still a monumental task. So it's like we got ourselves in a position, I think, as well as other
Yeah.
elements. There was lots of things going on, but
we're probably working badly by that point though, because if you're
yeah.
working all hours, working weekends, working evenings, you're not doing your best work because you're not well rested.
So
But
you get trapped basically. Like, yeah, there was a bit of a trap that we laid for ourselves
I
there.
see.
yeah.
But I think we got through to the other side, and I
You spent most of the time since release in bed.
oh gosh, like the amount of sleep, like I feel like I can't get enough sleep at the moment. But I
And you were
think
sick, like you had like illness after illness.
yeah, I got really sick afterwards as well, which was really annoying because like okay, the first week after release, we were in like I was in bed recovering, basically just sleeping for a week.
I see.
And then or that was like for a week and a half. Then I had like half a week of trying to do some work, mild at like mild six like sorry, various levels of success. And then we had a friend who was moving, and we had to like help paint his house. He has autism, so there's like things that he needs doing but just can't do himself. So we were like, okay, we'll do it.
I enjoyed that though, because you were out of the house. It was doing a physical,
True.
practical task.
Some
Yeah.
change in
away
the
from
time and the
screen.
moment, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
doing game dev finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was nice, but it was also physically exhausting after being in a house for like 6 months.
True.
And then I was like, okay, we've
You weren't
painted the
used to
house.
that, right? For so many months doing
Yeah.
something physically.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, we've done that. Christmas is like coming up, but it's not quite here yet. And I was like, there's going to be a week of like serenity for me, of like peace and quiet. Then I immediately got sick, and I had strep throat. So I went and got antibiotics for that.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, and then I had the cold after getting the antibiotics, and then at the end of the cold, I ended up with pink eye. So it was like one after the other, and I think that was just my body like, please stop, please stop.
Take a break from game dev, right?
Yeah, just
it's
take
finally out. The game is out. Now you can chill a
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
So I was really annoyed at that because I wanted time to like kind of relax and play video games that I enjoy, or read a book, or just something, go outside. But no, I was back in bed again, being sick and ill, and but I'm here now. I'm alive still somehow.
True. Do you think, by the way, from this learning experience, if we can say so, you would change your attitudes to time management for your next project? How do you think about it, or how do you feel about it, in order to
Don't add bosses suddenly.
okay?
Don't just suddenly add bosses to the game because you think it'll be cool. But I think
it's hard. So it was our first game. So it's like we're not in that position anymore. So it's like, okay, we're not like trying to prove ourselves.
I see.
I mean, we would want to put the effort into it, but not to that extreme. I don't think we should or anyone should put themselves through that for the release.
True.
I think it gave me a different perspective on
I see.
how games come out, and like games come out and there are problems, and I think people on those teams will absolutely know about it and be lamenting those things and be in situations where they can't do anything about it.
True.
And
that's what at the end of the
the-
day players do not understand. Sorry for interrupting you. That
No,
Yeah.
it's okay.
game developers are humans just like players, right? So they have
Yeah.
real life issues. So you have to understand that you have to be patient with them, right? So
Yeah. And okay, we don't have kids or dependents. It's just the two of us. If we had employees, we can't ask them to do that. We can't ask them,
true.
oh no, you have to stay here, you can't see your family, you can't see your kids.
Very true.
That seems to be I know leading a bigger team seems scary and
Yeah.
like
It's
a
like you
harder thing than what we did to have to
be responsible
be
for other people's
responsible for other
livelihoods,
people. Yeah.
basically.
True.
I think
And I would rather, developers can go home and can relax and can see their family, and then we get a patch after a month or something,
yeah.
than
Yeah.
it having to be perfect.
I
Yeah.
think well, for me, I think the thing really was like, yeah, just kind of the scope. And it's it's the difference between understanding starting something and polishing something, because it feels like it's very quick to polish things, but it actually part of polishing is testing, right? And the quality, like testing that quality, making sure it works, and that is like outside of the time it takes to make it, and it's so easy to not realize all of the other resources that need to go into polish. So it's like, okay, you can make this cool looking thing maybe in a couple of days, but how does it play when somebody else gets their hands on it? How long does it take to fix those mistakes?
True.
And okay, you've got some other big problem that has to do with like the game itself. Does that still fit in anywhere in the game as it stands? Do you have to alter that? Do you have to change that? So it's understanding what polish actually means. Polish doesn't mean nicer textures, better VFX.
True.
Polish also means fixing it and making it not broken and making it feel good to play. And the thing of cutting stuff, we were hesitant to cut things out of the game, which would have saved us time. And I think if we were more intense with cutting stuff, we probably could have kind of clawed some of our personal lifetime back. But there was this thing in our mind of, are we ever going to get this opportunity again? Will we be able to ever make another game again? Is this our one shot?
I see.
If it is, then let's put every single piece of ourselves we possibly can into that. And I don't know if that was the right decision. I feel the answer is no. I feel we shouldn't have sacrificed that much of our time to try and make Sorry, We're Closed what it is.
I see.
But then it's like we're also very happy with the reception. And
True. That's what I wanted to say, is that at the end of the day, it still shows that all the effort and everything that you sacrifice, your time, your health, in order to make this big project, people love it because you made all these sacrifices in order to have this game out, right? So
yeah, and I think that's like kind of the one thing that's really taken us by surprise, like Tom was saying earlier, was like kind of the reception. We weren't expecting. I mean, it's probably not going to stay like this forever, but 99% approve, like thumbs up on Steam, with like our over 700 like Steam reviews.
We were wondering if we'd even get over 100 reviews. I
Yeah.
mean, someone at the publishing team was getting a tattoo of the game, and then
nice.
like personally, we kept saying to each other, I hope they're leaving space for like mixed brackets 50 after it for like the review scores.
But I think yeah, so the reception has been has been great. And I think
Yeah, better than we could have ever imagined.
yeah.
So we're very thankful that people, resonated with what we made.
Yeah, and we're outspoken about it as well, like kind of talking about it, how they've enjoyed it. And it was a really interesting experience, like releasing the game though, because you feel like, okay, you've run the marathon and you're about to go like through the finish line and there's going to be people cheering and you get the bottle of water and the medal. But it's kind of not like that because there's like bug fixes. So it's like you've crossed the finish line and you've broken the ribbon and maybe there's a few people clapping, but they're telling you, but also keep running, by the way, because there's a new finish line over there. So
Oh,
go on.
I don't think it's not like people were demanding. I think
No, but
people were reporting things like vast majority and nice, pleasant ways to communicate with
see.
us.
yeah, they weren't
But
being
but
like,
I felt like a duty of, well, I have to
True,
fix
true,
these
true.
things immediately. I
yeah.
think like I was doing almost daily patches for the first couple of weeks.
I
Mhm.
see.
Yeah, and Tom,
be-
I think, had a harder time than I did because, I just basically fell into the bed and didn't get out of the bed. But like, there weren't a lot of things that, from my responsibilities of the project that I could necessarily do particularly quickly. Though a lot of people keep asking for Marty's portrait to be done, which I will do eventually. I'll get there, you
Oh, we
know.
can give him some sneaky information.
What's the sneaky information?
Oakley's portrait didn't exist until the morning of release.
Oh, like literally,
Okay.
Like 6 character portraits you
I
made in the
did.
last 24 hours.
I did 6 character portraits in the last 24 hours, of which were put in the game like 2 hours before the final build, which was 2 hours before
Okay.
it was
It
released
went
on
live.
Steam.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were changing
It was
things
real
right until
grungy
the
then.
end. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We gave the game to reviewers with the final level not available until like a few days before release, so they were thankfully patient with us
Yeah.
I
in
see, I
getting
see.
that done.
Yeah.
Because we were making like we had made a final boss and weren't very happy with it, so that got remade the weekend, like 4 days before release.
Yeah.
Um,
We had
and
like a pretty big redesign of the final
Wow.
boss.
it was very intense. Yeah.
And but then that kind of comes back to the whole issue of scope. Like,
And yeah, our inexperience and yeah.
yeah, our inexperience and not really understanding what the release pipeline looks like. Like, we're getting information from the publisher, of course, and it's not like we were completely in the dark,
I
but
see.
it's actually going through the process is very different from hearing about it. And I think we just probably weren't as prepared as we could have been, but then that's because
But I
we were
think it's not
still.
a bad thing. Sorry for interrupting you.
Oh,
In
no,
my
it's
opinion,
okay.
it's not a bad thing at all. Like I can say that it's like a kid in us, like I used to say it at the beginning of our interview. And kids are always like have this more creative way of doing everything because they are more naive to the surroundings of their life, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's what helped you like put everything into the game and still be naive what to put else or what's to not to put into the game, right? So in my opinion, at least
Yeah,
from the
there
story
is
that you told about making the game so
yeah,
far.
there is a truth to that. The naivety that we had meant that we maybe were taking kind of creative choices that, if you
Others
have
might
like
not
loads of,
took,
yeah,
right?
like sometimes when you have loads of experience, you kind of write off certain methods because you
True,
have
true.
tools that you rely on and you know that they give certain results.
Start to
So,
limit themselves.
yeah, and
Yeah, it's like if we could make a better judgment about, okay, we think that feature would improve the game, but not knowing how much time it would mean for us.
mhm,
Because it wasn't just like, let's throw everything we can think of in regardless of quality. I would like to think we were still quite deliberate in the intention and what we wanted people to get out of it.
True, true,
mhm,
true.
But it's the not being able to say no to some of our ideas
yeah,
and then because we've committed to them, having to find the time to try and get a version of that we felt was acceptable to have in the final product.
mhm.
And yeah, 99% thumbs up doesn't mean it's perfect by any means. It's just
No, there's definitely
people
lots of
found
things that.
we hope, some fun in the game. So it's
Yeah.
by no means a perfect game. So many things could still be improved.
Oh yeah.
But
And
at the
you
end
know,
of the day,
people,
that's what matters, right? Sorry for interrupting you again. That's what matters at the end of the day, to have fun with video games, right? So it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
about
yeah.
being perfect, but having fun.
Yeah, and you know, it's again that thing too of like, I think one of the other things, what I would probably organize what got done when a little bit differently. Like there were lots of instances where we were like, ah, we'll do the polishing during the polish phase, thinking more on the visual side of things,
I see.
and maybe like small um tinkering stuff. But there are some instances where I realize now that we probably could have just done that in like an hour at the time when we thought of it and just kind of slotted it in a little bit earlier because we really went with the let's make sure it plays really, really well before we really worry about the visuals of anything. But
Yeah, there's a lot of Tom VFX still in the
still in
game.
the
They're
game, yeah.
always meant to be temporary, like the healing effect when
Yeah.
you get hit, the little blood thing that comes out. That's all Tom VFX that was meant to be replaced. But
We just didn't have the time.
yeah.
And definitely this thing of realizing one thing that I think I didn't take into account when thinking of how the story element plays was the matrix of possibilities, which is we have this thing of you have like kind of these two extra storylines, and with them you make two decisions on like different days. And it was the thing of I wanted people to be able to change their mind.
Or pick it up if they hadn't made a choice at the
Or
beginning. Yeah.
But I didn't want it to be like, oh, the characters can just immediately swap and be like, oh yeah, actually, you know what? The complete opposite of what you said yesterday, that's fine. Because that felt weird, right?
True.
But it meant that we had to have different sort of so we had to have different dialogue that reflected the player, the player's journey.
And then we made like there's little extra tasks and extra items if you're swapping between them. So
Mhm.
there's some conversations have like what 6 different versions of how they can play out.
Yeah, I think a good like quick example is in the game there's like an angel who wants to send a love letter to their partner, and you have the ability to tell him one thing and say get back with your partner, don't get back. And then you're given a letter. And he encourages you if you tell him to get with his partner, he encourages you to give the letter to the correct person. But the player, we wanted to give agency. They could give the letter to someone else, which is for the other path of breaking him up.
I see.
And because of those two little sections, like that, those two kind of interactions from the player side, for the next day when you talk to this character, I had to basically write like it was either
It's like
6
you
or
either
8 different versions.
whether you spoke to him yesterday or didn't, which of the 2 pieces of advice you gave him, whether you did anything or didn't, or just kept the letter, and whether you gave it to the right person or
Or
the
the
other
wrong
person
person.
for each of those
I
situations.
see.
So it's very, you can very quickly see how two player decisions permeates into like 8 plus different
True.
versions of dialogue that need to reflect what the player did and what the potential is in the future.
True.
How do I have a character who tells another character to break up but gives the letter to someone else and tells them to get back together and then it's like all of that um because of two choices. And it's understanding like, okay, I have a much better idea of what scope is for player agency versus and major choices and how that actually affects the writing and the time of the writing and the implementation. Because even if it took me however long to just write it, it's not just me at the end of the day. Tom has to put
Yeah,
it in.
you feel you're then done, and then it comes to me, and I'm like, but what about this? But what
Yeah.
about this? But what?
He adds more.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
more. And it's just making sure that when we put it in, you know,
Because I end up with this kind of nerd view for the dialogue. So I'm like, sometimes I end up with like, this doesn't go anywhere.
yeah,
So it's like requesting new bits of
I
dialogue
see.
or
and also making sure the variables are correct. Like one equal sign can completely like break the game. Like
True.
essentially, there could be instances where if we did not have, like, if one letter or symbol was missing, the dialogue had nowhere to go, and you'd just be stuck. And it would just not move forward. There would be no dialogue box that comes up, the player's locked into position, and that, you
Yeah.
know,
I think we managed to ship without that happening somehow,
some,
or no
well,
one's reported
well,
it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, part of that was because of our friend Aru, who came and did like extensive playtesting. They helped find instances where this was happening, or that what didn't, what they were expecting.
I mean, making the dialogue system fail gracefully would be a goal for a future game, so we don't get into that situation. But
yeah, so I think there's probably a laundry list of things we would do differently.
I see.
But yeah, for me, it would be scope and being less pushy with what I wanted. Tom did give in to a lot of my desires, I think, with the game, and which is very kind and very loving of you, because I think he
I
could
think
see,
it's
like,
natural to want to accommodate things. Maybe you need to get better at saying no. But then I'm
I
like,
mean,
when you come with an idea and I think it's exciting, I want to put it in because I can see how it can benefit the game.
you were pretty good at saying no, but there were definitely times where, like, he would say no, and I'd turn around and be like,
Or I would
I
say
changed
no.
my mind. I will say yes.
yeah,
I think I would say no, and then someone just go and make the feature.
yeah,
Because like I would be thinking about it. I was like, oh, Christine really wants this. I'm like in the shower thinking of, well,
how
if I
to
do
make it
that
happen.
and this, then I can kind of get a version of that that works.
Yeah. And for me, I think I could probably also be a little less picky of how things look. I mean, I know
see.
people love how the game looks, and there were certain details
It's
that I
unique. It's
probably
unique, and it's very appealing in my opinion. It really
Thank
like
you.
have that core aspect of love in my opinion. Like, and that goofiness as well that you mentioned about Scooby-Doo movies and games,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy people love how it looks. As an artist, there's nothing more you could
True.
ask for.
True.
But also there were just like some small details that I could have like completely ignored, and nobody would notice that.
Yeah, maybe it's better that, some fans aren't on the walls, but we have a portrait of Marty.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
True. True.
So
True.
there's so yeah, so there's kind of those things to prioritize too.
I see.
But
I see.
we survived
True.
somehow.
True. What was your favorite part of the process of making? Sorry, we are closed, by the way.
Ooh,
Or your parts, if there are more.
my favorite part. I think I have two answers. The first thing is when we were really learning in the early days and coming up with the ideas and like, oh, we can do this, and just like learning how the different parts of making a game come together.
I see.
So free of responsibility and release dates, and worrying about how it's going to perform.
That scope,
and things
right?
like that. Yeah.
Ending scope.
Yeah.
And I think the other part is I really enjoy watching people play the game.
I see.
That's really rewarding. And if they are having a good time and like, well, even like during playtesting, so before release, how do I tweak this to make it so it is more fun for people? If someone smiles at a little detail or something we've put in, and it's that is very re-energizing for me.
Yeah, and
So
rewarding.
seeing where we're failing and tweaking it and then seeing the difference for people. So I really like that part of the process.
Yeah. I would almost say kind of the same for me. Definitely early on when we're like learning things and things were becoming more kind of, I guess, efficient and faster and more effective. Um I think for me it was the characters coming to life. Because like as an artist, especially a painter, you have these stories in your head of how things look. It's that thing too of like when I was little, I would be like listening to some music and I'd create like my own movie in my head, like with the trailer, and it's amazing. And making the game kind of fulfilled that a little bit, where it's like, okay, I've got these characters in this story and I can control the camera and like the angles and the animations, like because had so much control over that. I was able to kind of do what I wanted in terms of a story, which I made comics and stuff beforehand, but it's not quite the same level of satisfaction. Um, And yeah, seeing people play it and seeing, especially when people have really strong reactions, there's the character Daryl, which like so many people hate. Like they just hate him. I didn't realize I made him that much of an asshole.
It was kind of the intention.
It was the intention, but I thought like more people would be like, "Oh, he's like stupid and evil but cute." But no, like people are just like, "Oh, I hope he dies in a fire." And but seeing that strong reaction of like, who is this guy? I want to ruin his life. Like I'm like, oh man, people care enough about this story in a way that they want to actually engage and do something with it and see what happens
True.
and consider their actions. So
That's a
that's
powerful feeling.
yeah.
What about the hardest parts? You mentioned like your favorite parts. What about the hardest parts?
Tom
of the
already knows how I'm
process?
going to answer this, but I'll let Tom answer
You mentioned
first.
some of them, but if
Yeah.
there is any addition to those.
You said that, but now my mind's blank. What are you going to say? Anyway,
You know
you
what I'm
want
going
to
to say.
first finishing the game.
No, not just finishing the game, it's the dual vision.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to, and I think I've answered this maybe in some other interviews before, and unfortunately, it's going to be the same answer again because that was the hardest part for me. Like the writing was hard. I mean, all of it was hard, right? But the whatchamacallit, with this dual vision thing being real time and with it not being pre-rendered backgrounds or anything, I had to build every level twice. So where in the combat levels where you can see everything, and it's not even the entirety of the game is like this. There's some places where it doesn't have a strong effect or where, there's nothing there at all. But yeah, for quite a large chunk of the game, the largest portions of the game, I had to do everything twice. I had to come up with alternative props for, one world to the other. And I like I describe it as like, oh, I have a box here, but now I have to make an evil box for the evil world. It's like it's trying to come up with how do I create this sort of visual thing that both ties in with the themes of the character for that level, ties in with the world, looks like it fits in the world. Why would it be here in this place? How does making sure that it's not an awkward object or asset for the player to feel like they're drawn to and it's not something they can interact with, like all of that stuff. And then having to do it twice. And making sure things lined up with all the UVs and stuff so that when the vision was used, it didn't go weird because, like, there's a lot of technical stuff. Well, I say a lot. On my end, it wasn't that much stuff, but it was quite specific stuff that I had to be careful and look out for.
Yeah, the UV is like how the 3D shape of the object gets mapped to the texture. And if they end up at different scales, the edge of the vision where you have like the jagged line, you could get gaps in that, or it would look very smooth versus very jaggy on a different bit because of a different scale and the resolution of it. So
that was the hardest part.
Yeah.
I mean, the characters and stuff was like fun for me. Like they felt like they came really natural. And came out quite quickly and like doing the animations and stuff for them. Like it's not perfect. There's a lot of awkwardness with them, but level design itself is not. And I don't really have experience doing like environments. Like I'm not an environmental artist.
I see.
We haven't made any 3D models before the project.
Yeah, so that posed a very different challenge, and that took up a large portion of the time during development, which is why that came down to scope again, not realizing when we were designing the levels on paper, really cool, fun stuff to do. But the amount of time it takes to design all of that, and that was the hardest part for me.
How do I answer? Solving the challenges in development and learning things, I would say, was always enjoyable for me. So that even though I don't know how to do something, but I get to work out how to solve the problem. So that part's fun. Probably things like finishing the game or coming towards certain milestones, and maybe some of that pipeline stuff of like if the level's taking longer than expected, I get the level later, so I'm doing the implementation in a smaller amount of time than I maybe planned for. But that's, yeah, so time management stuff, deadlines, getting the game to a place where, okay, we're not happy, but we think it is possible to release it like this. And yeah, just trying to make the judgments on how we finish it and what goes in at the end. Yeah, finishing the game, I would say, is the hardest. What a silly answer.
No, but that's like a lot of
No, it's true.
developers
It's true.
say
It's
that
true.
as an
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to say something is done when you know there are things
Exactly.
that you
Exactly. And
still
you
want
still
to
like
focus on with
have
it.
this tickling in your mind that if it's finished or not, right? Have I done everything right? Do I need to get back to the game finishing something that I haven't done
So
before?
then watching players becomes part of the best thing, but also part of the worst thing, because you see
Okay.
all of your mistakes.
Yeah.
You see all of the things that you
Do
wish
you
you had
realize
got
now
to.
I have to work again on the game, right?
Yeah, we had like there was one particular stream I was watching where someone like went into a room and I think the spawn point is just like a little too close to the floor. So there's like a chance where you can fall through the room and end up dying.
It doesn't happen every time. Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't happen
the
every time.
massive eyesore room in the hotel. If anyone's fallen through the floor, sorry. But
Yeah. But like
you come back pretty
sorry,
close
we
to
are
where
we
you
are really close there, right?
Yeah.
We are closing the
But, like,
game there.
the thing is like that was such a bad experience for them where they were already not really enjoying the game. So
I see.
like that just seemed really random. And to them, they didn't know it's like a bug or anything. They just
see.
think, oh, if you go in that room, because it looks really like it's all got like flesh and stuff
Also,
inside.
they thought that it's a feature, right?
Yeah, they just thought, oh, if you go in that room, you die. And it's like, oh, that's not even like that's not a fun thing.
Yeah.
And it just feels bad when that's someone experience like
True,
when
true,
they
true, understandable. Yeah.
when they experience a bug that they think is meant to be there and it's just not a good feeling. And it's like, oh, and there's like not
True.
anything you can do for that one particular person who's already experienced that. You can only fix it for the future. But yeah, gosh.
True, true.
And one thing that I think I kept kind of thinking as well is like back in the day when you didn't have patches to download so easily. Like you were
It
telling
used
me
to be
about.
impossible. They used to do. They might do a different version on a cartridge, but that's just for new people buying it.
Yeah, what's the one where they had to sell? It's like resend CDs.
I think there was something like Twilight Princess on the Wii. Like you could get yourself locked in a room, and if it happened, you had to mail off your disc to Nintendo, and they would mail you a new version.
Oh, really?
Disc.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's like
Skyward Sword had a similar thing, but they did do a patch for that. Like it was like a weird eShop app you would download that would fix your save.
I see.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting seeing like the evolution of like how things get fixed now.
True.
Whether or not that makes it easier for people to want to release games with bugs in it because they think, oh, we can patch it later. Certainly wasn't our like intention of okay, we'll fix these game breaking bugs later. I think a lot of it came down to just our sort of inexperience.
And working on the game until release rather than, okay, we finished the game, then maybe let's have 1 or 2 months where we're just focused on playtesting and bug fixing before release.
True.
But I can definitely understand, especially in a lot of these old point and click games, like how soft locking was so easy to create without even realizing it would be an issue. And then that's just part of the game experience forever because you can't send out a patch and, getting the information out there of, oh, if your game's broken, we'll send you a new cartridge or a new CD. It's just so difficult. It would have been so difficult at that time to get that information out there in the first place.
True.
So, yeah.
It was like way more limited back then than now. Yeah. More personal question, by the way, would be from me. I believe that all of us creators who create our own craft, we always tend to put our inner self into the craft we make. Is this statement of mine true for your work when you worked on Sorry We Are Closed? You talked about it a bit at the beginning of our interview, but could you like add some examples of around this topic? If the answer is yes, of course.
Yeah.
But I believe so.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's really easy and like also extremely direct. Like Robin and Benedict are versions of me and Tom, essentially. I have the hat and I often wear it. You know, I've got the nose ring. I have the outfit and everything. Like, you know, that Robin is just essentially a self-insert. And
I used to be beautiful and cherub-like with long hair. It was just a long time ago.
I love that.
Tom did.
The Benedict is me when we met.
The Benedict is Tom when we met. He used to have the long flowing hair and like this really sort of like angelic presence. I mean, you still have it. You still have it. Don't worry. Don't worry. You still have it. But yeah, so they are versions of us, and essentially the story of them is like kind of how I viewed some of the stuff, like how our relationship is, and
I
essentially
see.
it's Robin's always trying to help Benedict, but doesn't always go the best way about it. Benedict is always kind of like stuck helping everyone and maybe trapped in that a little bit. Um, and for Robin as well, like, you know, it's the thing of thinking you can sort of brute force your way into a solution. That's something that I regularly do, whereas Tom is
There's some good secondary dialogue where Robin's trying to break the aquarium with their fist, just trying to punch it.
and that's
Just
something
to
that
crack it
Tom
open.
actually wrote because, you know, him understanding like how I am as a person, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's what CB would do. They just try and punch through fortified glass, and that would be their solution." And he's probably right. Um, but also there's some instances too where like, yeah, Robin's definitely they're trying their best to sort of solve this problem that they have and using whatever sort of resources that they possibly can and maybe and for a long time sort of falling short of that. Um, but there's also like, yeah, they seem like they're cool, but I don't know. In my head, Robin as a character is not really cool. They're really goofy and they're really, you know, maybe they think they come off as cool, but they're really not. I thought people were gonna hate this character as well, so I was like, you know what? It's deserved. But people seem to like them, so I guess I'm glad for that.
I think Robin's an easy character to like.
Yeah. But actually the other characters also kind of like represent different aspects of like Daryl and Oakley. I am Daryl, Tom is Oakley. Where he is just trying his best to do what's best for us. And I have like some great ideas, like let's make a video game. So, you know, Daryl not necessarily being able to put two and two together in the best way. I feel
Yeah,
like,
but they wouldn't have Mimi without Daryl.
y-
So
yeah, I guess so.
yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that I can bring.
Nice. I love that.
um, and with so the character Camuel and his partner Dream Eater, that's less of like a physical representation of like us as people, but that was more of a representation of like my difficulty with coming out as like non-binary and stuff, and also self-acceptance.
I see.
So with their relationship, the Dream Eater wants things to stay as they are, and in order to do that, he has to keep killing Camuel so that he's reborn as an angel over and over again. And Camuel wants to move on and allow his like for their relationship to be real and for that to, you know, consequences be damned. And I think you know, if when you're kind of at this point of exposing yourself like and showing who you really are, the longer you don't do it, the more you have to kind of attack yourself
True.
to keep everything hidden inside.
Yeah, and that's that fear that you mentioned about everything, right? Not just like releasing the game, but also accepting yourself and
Yeah,
your place in the society. Yeah.
exactly.
I think everyone has
And
a fear around this topic of accepting ourselves, right? It's just
yeah,
not everyone is like trying to make the first step of really trying to
yeah.
get out
And
to the real world.
the opposite end of that, the thing of like accepting the consequences, it's like, okay, once you reveal that truth, you can't take it back.
True.
It's
Yeah.
it's out there, and you it's just not really easy or possible
True.
to say, actually, that thing I told you, that's like a big revelation about myself. Well, none of it happened. You
True.
can't erase that.
True.
So it's a permanent change. And yeah, that's kind of essentially what their relationship
see.
sort of represented when writing that. And then the Duchess, without going, like, I could probably talk 5 hours about this,
I
but
love that. I can tell you. I love that.
so to keep it kind of concise and a bit more condensed, the Duchess is probably the one who represents the most of my anxieties and my fears as
I
a
see.
person being accepted,
I see.
finding what it means to move on with love and how that works. Because the biggest part, I think, there were some difficulties when I came out. And a big part of getting over that was learning to sort of, okay, I've said it now, but what does that mean for me? How do I both learn to like accept that I've grown and I've changed as a person without damaging everything from my past or like burning bridges and
I
things.
see.
And
I see.
yeah, so it was, you know, yeah, the Duchess is like, I think, the biggest tenet of like self-acceptance and knowing what that means, and that you can't have the cake and eat it too,
True.
as they say.
True. Very true.
What about you, Tom? What's in the game for you?
What's in the game
Thank
for
you,
me?
by the way, for your honesty. I respect that. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you
no,
so much.
that's fine.
Thank you.
I think my stuff isn't quite as deep in the game, but
Yeah,
it's
you
more
got
like
Larry.
I, if I can trick people in a way where they don't feel hurt by the game, I like that. Like there's a door in the aquarium that says, "Oh, you can only open it from the other side,"
I see.
and then you come around from the other side and you open it, and then there are enemies, but you can't go back through because you can only open it from the other side. But they're only weak enemies. But it's like, oh, it's a little trick. It's a little like, oh, well, I knew I couldn't because I read the door, but now I'm stuck in here with them. So I think little tricks, hopefully not too many of them are big tricks that people feel.
Mischievousness.
Yeah, yeah, I think I like the little tricks. I guess some of the side story characters, like I quite like in games where outside of the main plot, there are little things that happen and change day by day. So the spirits in the church was something I added in. I just felt I thought it was a bit empty. So, because through a lot of development, we had 2D cutouts for all of the characters, so it was quite easy to add new people in. So I added some spirits in the church, and they have a story that plays out over a few days. And
I would say a lot of your innocence is in the game. There's definitely a lot of your innocence in the game of, yeah, I think there's like kind of some of that goofy nature, where it feels very much like a video game. Like at the start, I think I wanted it to be really scary and like
I see.
creepy
I
and
see.
then you
very,
decided to make the game with me.
yeah. And then like I at the start, there were times where I was like, "Oh, but it's not scary, Tom." And you were like, "I don't care." And after a while, I kind of realized, like, actually, you know what? Maybe this is better. Maybe it doesn't have to be a super scary game. I
True.
think I'd rather have parts of Tom's personality in it than like try and make something that felt super
I see.
cinematic in a way or whatever.
Yeah, silly side stories. Like the spirits thing is just one of them is afraid about what is outside, so they stay in the church. And then there's someone that reassures them, then they go out. And there is a detail in the last day that their name has changed from scared spirit to free spirit. So their name actually
I see.
changes. And I don't know. I like little things like that. Or Marty's admirer.
Oh, yeah, that's
That's
another
a Tom
Tom. That's
character.
a Tom
So
character where I think you had simpler writing and I kind of
you took the
expanded on it a
idea.
little bit.
Yeah,
I see.
But yeah,
there's Marty likes the demon world, and there's a demon who's always in his store. And I mean, it's very easy to miss because you have to open the third eye and talk to them because they have a demon form, but there's no hint that that is even there. but this demon is secretly pining after
Marty.
Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's a few, I think, gosh, what else did you add? Because there's definitely more of the other side characters. I think that you had some, oh, the loud demon. You basically, like, I added a couple of extra
The
things.
loud, ravenous, and what was the third one? Because when I was writing, there was Demon 1, 2, and 3, and you gave them proper names.
Oh, there's the disgruntled demon, but I think I completely
Oh,
rewrote
yeah,
that one.
he was unhappy about his
Yeah.
importance in the world. Why is everything for the Duchess?
Yeah.
I should have this.
But yeah, so yeah, there's lots of Tom in there. A lot of his like charm and goofiness and innocence that I think make Sorry We're Close feel very different from what else is out there at the moment.
Thank you again for your honesty. I respect that really. Thank you.
That's all right.
You've spoken, by the way, about change. How do you guys change from being a game developer in other territories of your real life? So from being a game developer, how have you changed in other territories of your real life, everyday life?
Okay, how's it affected the rest of our lives?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'll let you answer first. Didn't talk too much.
I think we're still kind of coming out of this, but having an appreciation for going outside and spending time with people, and trying to have a better grasp of what the choices of how we spend our time have on the people around us.
I see.
Yeah, maybe striving to try and find a balance in life. So that's something we're still working on. But
I mean, for me, I think it's kind of changed how I would I say communicate with people? I guess in a way, like I'm more aware of how what I might be putting forward won't necessarily be picked up by others. Because like during the game design process, there are certain things you put out on the table and you think it's extremely obvious, and it's not to a lot of people. Um, so it's definitely being more open to how people might interpret something, and I guess yeah, just giving more allowance for that. I mean, I'd like to think I was able to do that to some extent before, but it sort of highlighted that a lot more.
maybe how giving feedback can affect someone, and I guess that can be because we worked together on it. I've not worked with someone on something where we both live in the same house, so you decompress from the work with the people that you work with. Because I think I've always been very product focused. Like it isn't about the person. The person's not made a mistake with something, but I'm giving an opinion on how I perceive something, like be it an asset or something for the game. And I think being very blunt about that because, oh, I think this can be improved through this or this or this, but needing to have an understanding of how what you say impacts the person who created that as well. And then I think applying that to, well, I probably do that with all sorts of practical tasks and don't see the impact of that bluntness or straightforwardness of it.
Yeah.
So
I think communication is definitely something that I think having to work on something of this scale forces you to adapt to.
I see.
Because yeah, there's just so many different elements of how a game is made with so many different responsibilities, and with a smaller team you have those extra responsibilities too, and it's like yeah, there were definitely instances of oh, I think also like supporting someone when even like finding ways to support people that actually is the way that they need the support.
I see.
Like
Not the way like you would like them to support, but the way they need to be supported.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, there's often a way in which you think, okay, well, if we just do this particular thing, that will make the person feel better. But sometimes they kind of need a
sorry.
different kind of space where you just sort of let them have the feelings that they're having and you're sort of supporting them emotionally without
True,
trying to
true.
just proactively fix it
True.
immediately. Because yeah, I think working, being in a relationship and being in the house, all of those things tied together, like it makes it a lot harder to sort of remove yourself personally from the process of
True.
everything. So
And that ties into, so whereas seeing how I'm communicating about things, also making sure you are mentioning people's successes.
yeah,
Because like if I say one thing about one asset, it's because all of the other things are great and I think they're really good, but not expressing that and only expressing things that I think had issues can doesn't create the best environment for
True,
someone, I
true,
think.
true, true.
Yeah.
You have to appreciate those happy times, not just the sad times, right? So
Yeah,
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 it's a
basically.
learning phase for people. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay. My question, by the way, about the game would be itself. So, are you guys planning to release the game to other platforms as well? Because it's on PC now, but are you guys planning to like? Because you mentioned at the beginning of our interview that you played on so many platforms as a kid, right? And in adult form as well. So, are you guys planning to have your game on Nintendo Switch or Xbox or PlayStation? Because that would be very cool, right? To have.
It would be cool.
It would be
We would
cool.
like to, if there's an opportunity to do that,
I
we'd
see.
certainly like to go
I see.
for
I
it.
see.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's something that I think if we manage to pull something like that off, I would definitely, I think that almost makes it feel like I've made it, you know? I think it's always been like a dream of mine to be able to have like a physical
Yeah,
version
that would
of
be
a
my
game.
next question. That's, are you guys planning to have like a physical? You're reading in my mind. I love that, by the way. You're reading in my mind. Every question you're reading it. Nice.
But yeah, it's I think that's because that's for a lot of people, like especially our age, who grew up
True,
during the
true,
physical
true.
media
Very
like
true.
kind of
Exactly, exactly,
time in our lives, and you know that made things feel real, like when it's
exactly,
physically in
exactly,
your hands
exactly,
and it's like
exactly.
an actual thing. So I would love more than anything for that to happen.
I hope so. It will
And
happen. I hope so.
if it does, we'll let you know. You know, we'll tell you and be like,
Thank you.
hey, you know.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We touched here, by the way, a lot of topics. Are you down to go into some community-oriented questions from my chat as well before I ask some more questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know, by the way, if there is any question. Let us know. We talked and touched here a lot of topics. Any questions? Any questions? Well, let me read back the chat.
Oh, look, Saul's there.
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions? Bármilyen kérdés, hölgyek, urak? Any questions? Let us know.
But if not, you know what? That is also totally fine. Because I think we talked so much.
True, true, true. We touched a lot of topics here, yeah. And I love that,
Yeah,
I can tell you, because I love if people are open-minded to talk about their games and experiences. And like I said, I respect your honesty about the personal questions, and I hope that I wasn't too like cocky about like asking personal questions.
No.
Thank you.
I think for me they're like kind of the more interesting ones.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think especially like for a sort of interview like this, you know, there needs to be a good mixture of like talking about technical stuff, but also
Exactly,
like the
exactly,
creative aspect
exactly,
of it.
exactly.
Because you know, different things are going to interest different people. So
Exactly, exactly. And
yeah.
that was my goal with my show when I started it like years ago, because I feel like there's so much hate going on in the video game industry and in other territories of our life, not just especially in the video game industry as well. And I think I always wanted to build a bridge between players and developers. So in order that players see that it's actually real humans who are making games, it's not just a click, like I'm always saying, right? And the game is out and you can blame the developers because it's a shitty game. No, it's not a shitty game. You have to understand that it's people. People can make mistakes. People have outside lives of making the game. So it's not just that they are no. I always say this: nobody wants to make a bad game, right? So none of the developers want to make a bad game. So you have to respect their time, their health, their issues in their life. in order
Oh,
to
unless you're
pursue their
the
dreams to make the games out there.
what we call it. Gosh, I remember reading this little piece of trivia from because I was interested in trying out the game. I must scream. I forget which way around it is. Is it I have no mouth, but I must scream, or I must scream, but I have no mouth? I forget which way around. It's like a point and click adventure that's based off of a book, and it's supposed to be extremely grotesque and very violent in many different
I
ways.
see.
So I would say every trigger warning you can think of, it's gonna be that that's what that story is about. So be fair warning if you're going to try and look into it. But apparently, the guy who wrote the story, when they were developing the game, he wanted to make the game so confusing that it would be too difficult to beat for the players and be a frustrating time for them. And apparently, that ended up changing partway through development. So nobody wants to make a bad game unless you're that guy.
Um, I like what you said with that around maybe having people appreciate things more, because it does
Thank
feel
you.
like, especially reading things online, that
Exactly.
maybe it's almost like an enjoyment to find fault in things.
Exactly.
But when I was a kid, you just got the game that was at the store. Like, I can afford this one. This one has some
We
cool
were happy
screenshots.
about playing games. We weren't complaining,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I would, I would play the same game over and over and over and
Exactly.
over, because that's
Exactly.
what I had. And
Mhm.
I would notice different details, and I would have a great time. There's, Turok Evolution 3 out of 10. And I had a great time playing
True,
that.
true, true,
I
true.
was like a young teen, and I
I
don't
always
know,
say that scores do not make sense at the end of the day. Like these
yeah.
people giving scores to games doesn't make sense, at least from my opinion. Even though I was a video game journalist, that's why I quit all of my job, because I felt like the corruption is growing and the scores doesn't make any sense. I always bring this example to the table when I speak about this topic, is that I reviewed the game Gollum, the Lord of the Rings Gollum game, and it was like the worst game of all time, like 2 out of 10, because of a lot of people said so, and I gave it a 7 out of 10, and I wrote a very positive review, and my boss like tuned down the scores to 2 out of 10. And if you read the article itself, it's a very positive article which ties to the original score, but if you look at the scores, it's 2 out of 10, and I was so sad about it. That's when I realized that most of these video game journalist companies are like very corrupt and very tied to the Metacritic average scoring. You cannot score a game better than the Metacritic, because that's like the god of like even though it's an average score, right? And it's not like everyone would have to like tie to it.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it's sad.
It's
sad. It's very sad. It's not just it can kill people's career, like you mentioned at the beginning of your interview, because developers, I know by now so many developers who get depressed by the end of their project because like reviewers and people hated their game, and not just that hating, but hate mailing them and threatening them. It's crazy. Like why are you doing that? Like
I mean, there's parts of me that when Cyber Close first came out, it's really difficult because you go through like this gauntlet of pain of trying to release the game, and then you're waiting to see what people feel about it. And there was like at the very start, it was quite difficult because it's like even when people are complimenting the game, they might be saying something that they found difficulty with. And like I felt sort of obligated to be like, oh man, this person had a bad time with this thing I worked so hard on, and I feel bad about it. Like that was not my intention. And like feeling a sort of sense of obligation of like, oh, I failed them, like Tom said. It also made me like kind of, I guess, more sensitive and like insecure to like what people were saying about the game, because it's like the amount of pain that there was in some certain parts of the process. Like sometimes someone might write something about a specific part of the game, and like it was almost like a bit triggering in some instances where they'd like it would just remind me of the process of making that part of it,
back again
like
to
the
those times.
difficulty with yeah. But it also helps me understand sometimes, like, you read a review and they're basically saying, oh, this game is amazing. And then, yeah, it has like a really low score, or the opposite way around. Because I've definitely read some reviews like that, not about Sorry We're Closed, just in the past, where I was very surprised by what the score was, despite what the article was saying. So it's kind of interesting to know that that isn't something that's happened
Sadly,
in the past.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is
It's,
no like freedom in writing. I can tell you that if you work for others, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were gonna say something, Tom?
I think there's different levels of healthiness with it. Like it's healthy for creators, or for at least me, to know what worked and what didn't work for people.
Yeah.
Then I can consider those things for the future, but also consider, okay, how in this scale is it? Is it, okay, 1 person out of 1 in 10 people having this problem? Is it like 1 person out of everyone has mentioned it?
True.
Maybe this just wasn't a game for them, and try not to be too swayed for the future
It's true.
based on one comment. But if there is a trend in things, it's like, okay, this could be made better for a group of people. Yeah, the ability to enjoy things. It's like TV shows and movies too. There is always big vocal displeasure in things that we see online. But I'm like, well, how many
Sure.
people out there aren't writing comments and maybe did enjoy the thing?
Exactly.
And
people are rather
have
like
it.
expressing their hate rather than
Yeah.
saying something is good, right? So it's rare
Yeah.
nowadays that people say it's good rather than saying it's bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe is it a nicer place where, okay, not everything is perfect, but I can find fun and enjoyment with this. I decided to buy this. Wouldn't it be great if I enjoyed it?
True.
Um,
Very
And
true.
yeah, I think also too, like, I definitely think that there is like a time and place for criticisms and you know, I think examinations and analysis. I think it can be more difficult to know if you're really doing a good analysis without really knowing or understanding the intention. It can be a lot harder to, I guess, yeah, it's tricky because I know that there are instances where I might talk about like a particular piece of media with my friends and I'd say, okay, I'd do it this way or I'd do it differently or I didn't like this part. But I have definitely found myself, I tend not to really write about a lot of this stuff online, I guess, because I feel that it's really easy, especially with a limited word count, not being able to express yourself fully
Exactly.
and
That's
people
very true. Yeah,
misunderstanding.
that's very true.
Um, and yeah, it's just different having those conversations face to face with other people versus online
Just writing
towards.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing too is like when writing online, it can sometimes almost seem like you're writing into a void, but it's not. It's actually kind of the opposite. Like you're literally writing out on a public like space
True.
where the whole point of it is for there to be like access to anyone can come
Exactly.
and find this stuff.
And it also affects people's lives, right? Because it sometimes can limit people's behavior towards a game, how they're receiving it. I always say this, that there's nothing wrong if you mention that you loved something about the game, but if you constantly hate on a game as a form of media, even if it's a streamer, YouTuber, or a reviewer or video game journalist, then you won't let the people who are more likely to be like sheep-minded and crown-minded and listen to that media outlet, not letting them to really try out even the demo or buy the game to try out for themselves, right? So that's the whole point of when I mentioned it, that these people are killing the option for players to really try out and have their own opinion, right? Because there's nothing wrong if you say that, hey, I didn't like this in the game and didn't like that in the game, and that was a very good part in the game, what I love. But saying that you should not buy the game is crazy to me. Like, why someone would like to decide for me, for my personal life, what should I do with my own money, right? It's like, it's so stupid in my opinion. Like, it's why.
Yeah,
It's not their job, right? Even if video game journalists think that their job, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be their job, right? They should be like objective based. But saying that you should not buy this game, how the hell it's objective based opinion forming? Come on, like.
Yeah, I guess it's the difference between sort of expressing what you're feeling about something versus calling to action and having a prescriptive kind
Exactly.
of
You're
mode of
taking away the
thinking.
option for people to form their own opinion. Like,
Yeah. And I think, you know, it would be nice, obviously, especially in the world of social media that we are in now, where we're encouraged through all sorts of kind of addictive methods to, you know, try and engage in the content continuously.
True.
So it's definitely an uphill battle for people to, I think, try and step away from that, to give themselves the time and the space to be able to sort of experience things, you know, in their own time, and you know, find what they like or dislike about things. Um, so yeah, I think.
I'm trying to think like how I used to engage with reviews because as a kid, like I had the GameCube magazine, Cube magazine, and I would, you know, you get your screenshots, you get your previews, and there would be the review. I loved Star Fox 64. That's like one of my favorite games ever.
Nice.
So surely I would like the sequel on GameCube. I would be excited. You know, there were criticisms in there. I didn't buy the game. I didn't try the game. I played it a lot later, like a couple of years ago, and had a good time with it. I would have probably loved it as a kid, but I didn't buy it because of what I read about at the time. But where am I going with this? I can kind of understand that people looking to the review, if you have a limited budget, you're like, well, I want to buy
No,
the
it's
right
true.
thing.
Yeah, it's
I
true.
want
It's
to
true.
buy the
It's
right
true.
thing and have, you know, the best game I can get with the money. But that doesn't mean that like a
The
7
game
out of
is
10
bad,
game will-
right? That's if
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
have the
yeah,
money
sure.
to buy the game, that it doesn't mean that it's bad, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that reviews can definitely like, there is like a usefulness to them in the sense of like, you know, they can explain the mechanics, they can explain what you're kind of in for, and you can gauge, oh, I like this type of gameplay, so I would enjoy that type of
Yeah,
game,
exactly. That
right?
would be the ultimate goal for the reviewer or the any like media outlet or content creators, to tell you what options are there and for what crowd, what personalities that they can pursue
Yeah.
for as in the game, right?
And I think maybe something that's a bit of a misstep with you know, how people view reviews is that I think sometimes it's worth sort of finding someone who kind of maybe aligns with your taste and how they enjoy games, because they might be able to find, you know, if you're a little more in tune with them, you might be able to understand the aspects of whether or not you would personally like the game or not.
True,
But I think it's really difficult because sometimes, especially with the number of games that come out, and you know, the number of reviews that reviewers have to go through, you're not necessarily going to be able to specialize in a particular type of genre or a particular type of game that
true.
you would personally want to experience and create a profile, so to speak. So it's like anyone gets handed any game, and you know, they just have to work with what they got. I know in some instances we've been asked by people like, "Oh, can I get a copy of your game? I'm interested. Let me have a review. You know, can I write a review of it?" So, you know, that does still happen, but I think for maybe some of the larger publications, there's a little less opportunity to be selective. So,
oh, how do you mean with being less? I think I missed part of the point. Yeah, I
it was more, I think what I would prefer to do in terms of like reviews and stuff, if I was someone who was reading reviews more regularly to gauge whether or not I would like a game, I think I would try and find reviewers that I think resonate more or less with the kind of like a kind of way of appreciating games that I do.
okay, so someone who's like on a
I
similar
respect that, yeah, and I
wavelength.
can
Yeah,
relate to that, yeah, because at the end of the day, you have to realize that games are made to have fun, right? So,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like we discussed it earlier, that none of the developers want to ship a bad game, right? So it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
you have to
exactly.
also understand it, yeah.
Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah. Thank you again for your honesty about this topic too. Thank you.
No, that's right.
Any questions, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, so far? Any questions? We talked here a lot of topics, or about a lot of topics. Bármilyen kérdés, hölgyek, urak? Any questions? Any questions? Let us know. By the way, we touched here a lot of topics. Is there anything that you would like to ask? Or say? Sorry, I'm Rust here.
I'm trying to think because I feel like, you know, no, I feel like pretty good. You know, if you're gonna think about making a game, don't let scope creep happen. I think it's the
That's the
lesson here.
advice, right?
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's something with barrier to entry for creating games is a lot lower now, because that's like, I don't know,
You don't have to make your own engine.
when we were finishing school, so like getting on for 20 years ago,
Oh God.
I don't think we would have had the tools available to make something like this.
I see.
Maybe there was an early version of Unity. Blender didn't exist. There weren't all of these tutorials and things easily available online, because we didn't go to school for any of this. So we
Yeah.
have just learned through the generosity of people giving their time to create content, to talk about it. And I think we've seen a change with a lot more games coming out. There is so much competition. There are so many projects that people are making, all vying for attention. And I think in a way, I like that. I like seeing more ideas from a wider array of people represented in games, especially like when we found Itch. And like there are bizarre things there, and during the game jams there, because we started Sorry We're Closed, and then a few months in, I found this thing called Mech Jam. We were like, I want to make a mech game, and you weren't quite in on it yet, so I just had like my little capsule guy. I was making my own models again. Then Christine was like, "Oh, okay, I'd like to make some mechs." So we made this little mech game in 2 weeks. There are some that are tiny, like 48-hour jams. And we were still working full time at our regular jobs then, so that wasn't really something we would be able to do. And even now, making a game in 2 days, I don't know if we could do that.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks seemed like a nice time to chip away at something in the evening, and just being able to release it. You know, it's low pressure. It wasn't for financial success or anything. It's just a small project with the other people who are working on it, all like posting updates in the Discord and seeing what everyone's making, and then playing and giving feedback just in those little groups. We ended up doing 3 jams within that same kind of community of creators, and that was a wonderful time. I would say that felt very much like the start of development on Sorry We're Closed. And maybe scale. It doesn't, if you make a game, it doesn't have to be the next indie darling or something. It can be a hobby pursuit as well.
True.
And I like that is a possibility. That's how we got into it. We didn't start this with the idea we would be producing a commercial title.
I see.
That will kind of
Just
happen
grow out
accidentally.
from there, right?
Yeah.
I
But
see.
I would love to make more small scale games and kind of get back into
The hobby side of it.
yeah, kind of cadence where we can regularly release something small without the
see.
pressure of how it needs to perform and how it will be perceived by a wide group of people.
Yeah.
I see. Speaking about the future, by the way, are you guys planning to make a big game as well, not just like smaller games like you mentioned, or you do not know anything
It's like
about this part of the future? Or you are
there's
not
like
sure?
a project that we're kind of working on at the moment. And it's one of those things where we're going through sort of some of the initial phases of it.
I see.
But we need to kind of take, I think, a step back from it and understand what it's meant to be a little bit better.
There are a few ideas we're excited about, but we haven't 100% settled yet.
Yeah.
And it's what route do we go? Whereas last time it kind of happened accidentally, people came to us asking if we wanted to publish it and to work on the project full time. It's do we go out and pursue that? Do we want to make something smaller scale that we can handle just on our own? Do we want to do something for fun versus a commercial project? Or is it a mix of a few overlapping things? Maybe we chip away at the bigger thing whilst also working on something small. So yeah, nothing set in stone, but
We're
I
kind
think
of
we can
like,
quite happily say it's not going to be Sorry We're Closed to.
yeah. Yeah, I think sorry we're close. I'm quite happy to
At least for now.
yeah.
We would need to have ideas of what could be fresh and exciting in that world, mechanically as well as with the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, I think Tom's pretty much summed it up. We've got ideas, I think we are just kind of needing a little bit of time to
I see.
decide what is the best path to take, you know. So, I mean, as soon as we are ready to say something, we'll say it.
Is it
So
this
people,
year or next year when players can hear something about your new project or projects? Or it's
oh, I wish
spoiler
I,
time and you don't want to talk about it?
I think the honest answer is we don't know at the moment.
I see, I
yeah,
see,
I
I see.
think, I mean, obviously there's like we have to be realistic about how much time we have before we can say anything, but
Sure,
I think it's just
understandable, yeah.
because we're not 100% sure what it is. It's hard to know when that announcement comes because it really depends on what the
I see.
project. If it's something that is really small and tiny, then yeah, we would announce it quite quickly. But if we did end up doing a larger project, there's more things involved. So you have to kind of hold your cards a little bit closer to your chest at that point. So, but no,
I see.
you know,
I see.
we'll figure it out. We'll
See.
figure it out, and as soon as we do, somebody will hear about it. Maybe we'll try and let you know at least. and be
Thank you,
like,
thank
"Hey,
you, thank you,
yeah,
thank you. I appreciate that.
We'll come back with the exclusive announcement.
True,
Yeah.
true, true.
Yeah.
I would appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. I would totally appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. So we talked
But
about. Yeah, no, go for that. Sorry,
no,
sorry.
no, no, go ahead,
No,
no,
go
go
for
ahead.
that. Go for that. Go for that. Go for
No,
that.
literally, I think I was just doing that thing of like had half of a sentence in my mind and my mouth started talking before I finished formulating the thought. So go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
you go ahead.
So we touched here, by the way, a lot of topics. Is there anything that you would like to add before I will go into some closing questions?
I don't think so. I mean, I think like yeah, no, take care of yourself. Have fun, when you're like creating something. I think and I'm glad that people have enjoyed Sorry We're Closed. Like, thanks to everyone who has supported the game, who's talked about their enjoyment of the game and, sort of engaged with this thing that we took the time to create. And it'd be great to be able to announce what the next thing is, and we'd love to do that at some point. We just got to figure out what it is first.
True, 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 very true, very true.
What about you, Tom? Any final closing words?
Oh, first to check, you said about some wrap-up questions. So are we
No, I think sorry, I thought he
Wait.
said closing thing. Or I might be wrong.
Yeah, I
might
have
be
a
wrong.
closing question to summarize everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In my
closing
mind.
question to summarize everything.
No,
I
I
was
have
thinking-
I have one for you.
Yeah, ask your
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead then.
so my question would be from all the topics that we talked about here, and also you shared your own stories. What would or what was and what is the ultimate message that you always wanted to give to the players with your game? Because I believe that all of us creators who create our own craft, we always, even if it's not on an intentional level, but we always put a message into the craft we make, right? So what was that message that you always wanted to have in your game? Or you realize in the process or during the process that hey, it's what we always wanted to say, and it's there now.
What do you feel, Tom? I mean, I think I've got kind of an answer for it.
I think it's quite simple that it is a game. It isn't too serious.
Okay.
And I don't know. Yeah, acknowledging that the thing we are making is a game, and we don't have to be constrained by arbitrary boundaries with it.
For me, I think it's I guess it would probably be with the story elements, and it would be the case of accepting change. And change is inevitable. We get older, we change as people, our bodies changes, the people who are in and out of our lives change.
True.
And that you know spending a lifetime like fighting against it can you'll feel like you've lost time.
True.
I think if you wait to find the right time to accept the change, I think, there'll be a sense of relief that like you've finally done it, but I think, there's kind of no point in waiting. just understanding that it's happening all the time, I think is beneficial, and I think can kind of help broaden people's minds as well to the changes that happen in others. And I feel like, that's a valuable thing in life to have. So there you
I see. I see. Do you think, by the way, that by making this game together, you really found yourself in life, and that's the right time, right moment for you, both of you? Or is it something that you still would like to do in life, that it's like way bigger than a game or a project that you always wanted to do? Because people have dreams, right? Like you told us,
Yeah.
both of you told us that you always wanted to work on a video game, express yourself. Is it the ultimate like achievement that you always like wanted to have in life, and you by that you really found your place in time and in life?
I kind of, I mean, yeah, I think for me, working on the games has really been like nothing else that I've done before. I've been painting for a long time. So being able to add all the different elements of the stuff that interests me as like a storyteller and a visual person, I think games really do that in a way that I don't know if I could find anything else
You
that
get
can do
all of the
that.
different media things. So you get your storytelling, the 2D art becoming 3D, becoming animated.
Combining
Yeah.
together, right?
Yeah. Music, you started composing music for this
Yeah,
game
I
for the
did
first time.
actually, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting journey. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. I think for me, the process has given me the ability to problem solve within how games are put together. So I
see.
think that is a freeing thing. Like if we have an idea now, I can be, within I feel small period of time, be fairly confident as to how we could actually make
Yeah, the
that.
solution box
And
for the future.
yeah, that feels very freeing for, how do these different pieces of how games are made come together on a small scale, of course. Like I can't go and create a massive open world game on my own tomorrow,
Yeah, we're not making GTA or anything.
That feels very liberating, and it makes things like, I don't know, the game jams seem very exciting now, because whereas before we knew nothing, we have all the knowledge from this project now.
True.
So that part feels like mission accomplished. And yeah, making the project together, it's a big tick. We managed to make a game that a group of people liked. We came out the other side of the process. You said about finding out ourselves. I think maybe we lost ourselves a little bit, especially towards the end of the project. So maybe we're still finding ourselves, and that carries
I
on.
see.
Maybe it's finding balance going forwards. But yeah, very fulfilling to have completed the project and have it out there.
I see.
And yeah,
Yeah. I
thank
think
you
that's
for
it.
your help with it.
You're welcome. Thank you for making it a game. I think without Tom, like it would have just been like a glorified Blender video. So it wouldn't have been a game
Yeah,
without
but
Tom.
without you, it would have just been the horrors that I created in Blender.
It would
But
be
yeah,
more
I guess
scary, like you said before, right?
yeah, it would have been the true horrors. It would have been a proper survival horror.
Okay, so next time you're gonna do the coding and I'll do
Oh
the art.
God.
It's interesting, by the way, because when I played the game for the first time, I remember myself like going into like FPS mode and like, visualizing the hearts of the enemies and the creatures. And sometimes I felt very like hard to kill those creatures because you could actually see their hearts, right? And even if I
Yeah.
knew that they were down to attack me if I'm not killing them, it was like a hard decision for me. So it was very interesting to see this like mind tickling decision for me to have, like, in order to kill those monsters. Like they might be not that like dangerous, because they have hearts like us, so it's the horrific like scene for me, or at least it was when I was playing it for the first time.
Glad you got some deep feelings of it like that. I mean, also, I think what was kind of fun was adding some characters in the story part of it that were similar designs to the enemies. And that thing of, yeah, a lot of the demons were meant to represent people who have like unresolved issues, and they
True.
also have hearts, they also have
True.
things.
We just tend to
And yeah,
forget it in our real life, right? So
And
it's easier
Michelle's
always to
just,
judge than like to realize that
yeah,
they have feelings too.
yeah. Michelle's just sort of there, like mauling them down, sort of murdering them.
I always had we never made it, but for the credits I wanted to have, because it's like this idea that, oh, Jenny's this horrific thing killing people with the axe, but Michelle's just killing demons. So I wanted the ending montage. It's just like Michelle, but she's actually attacking the people, and it's not just the demons. But that's just from my head. That's not from the author of the story. That's not from Christine.
DLC maybe, who knows, right?
Yeah.
DLC. Spoiler time. Thank you, by the way, again. Thank you for your honesty, and thanks everyone who tuned in live here today. You will be able to, by the way, ask questions if you missed asking questions on my Discord as well. Everyone who watched it or who will be watching back our video on Twitch. And thank you again. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having us and asking very deep questions.
Thank you.
It's and it's different answering questions after all this time of it being made. And well, I say all this time, it's only been like, it's not even been 2 months yet.
Not quite. No.
It feels like it's been a year already. I feel like it's
the pressure, right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So thanks for having us, and
Thank you.
your patience as well, like trying to reach out for us and reach out to us.
I respect what you have done with your game and your job and your personality. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And have a good evening. And
I will need some more of your minutes if that's okay to you off stream, but I will close down the stream here as well. Sure. So for those who were watching us, thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching our episodes, and don't forget to try out the game, right? And buy it if you like the concept of it. Tell us how you liked it, review it, and leave your review on Steam, and be on the lookout for the future projects of our friends here. Thank you everyone who joined us for today's episode. Have a great day or night, depending